Good morning, everybody. Wow, it sounded like I was out later than I was. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for being here at PDMI East 2026. Last day of the show. We're excited to welcome you all back. Great to see such a crowd of happy faces at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. That can be a little bit of a 50-50, so we got a good group here. Yep. Oh, that's not turned on. I'm not going to be clicking anything. I'm Thomas Hare, the Chief Content Officer of the PDMI, and we appreciate you all being here. We appreciate all of our badged attendees, all of our members, all of our sponsors. Sequoia Media Group is a sponsor as well. But in our education sessions, we appreciate our education sponsor, and that's Blue Water, and they have a message to share with you now.
I'm incredibly proud to be the official protein bar of NASCAR.
Are you looking for an on-the-go travel
I feel like
snack?
younger self. Lipazine even works.
Get yours
It really
today.
works.
It's better on a Blackstone.
So visit Blue Water. I believe they're at table 3 in the meeting hall. The roadmap to scale is what we're here to talk about. George Young, leader of Sequoia Media Group, is here to walk you through it with this great group of brand leaders. We're excited to have them all on stage. Welcome. Thank you, George.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. You're in for a great time today. We're going to have a lot of fun. And by the way, thank you. 10 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday, towards the end of the conference, everybody out late last night. That's dedication. Absolutely love it. As I mentioned, terrific panel here today. Some real superstars in our industry. And we're going to cover a topic that I think is extremely relevant for our time in the industry right now. A lot of the meetings I'm having, people are talking about the shifting sands in the industry right now. Where's performance media? Where's the convergence in all of it? And of course, importantly, in terms of scaling, is that roadmap that we all followed previously that we know from, in many cases, being in the business decades, does it still follow in the same way that it has in the past? So again, I'm George Young, CEO of Sequoia Media Group. I'm also the CEO and founder of an agency called Case Legal Media, a performance agency focused on legal, and the co-founder of an intake center called Intake Dynamics. So running 2 agencies and an intake center is a lot of fun, for sure, no question. So an outstanding topic, and equally, again, some just amazing superstars with us today. First, immediately on my left-hand side, Rich Thompson. Rich is an Effie, Gold Edison, American Marketing Association, Advertising Age, Marketing 100 award-winning business and marketing strategist, who Chief Sales and Marketing Officer of Burger Boats. He oversees the direction of marketing sales, product development for this legacy brand. And by the way, was founded, 1863?
1863.
His background spans business leadership and strategic marketing for some of the really world's most recognized brands, including small little companies like DuPont, Illinois Tool Works, and Newell Rubbermaid. So please welcome Rich to our panel today. Rich, am I the only person in the world that thought maybe originally it was a hamburger company? But
No,
yes,
no,
okay.
Trust me on that.
And it's not the worst idea when this is over. Take a look at the website, learn a little bit about this company. These are unbelievable vessels that are truly legacy boats. We also have with us today the incredible industry veteran, Racine Levy, founder of the growth and media advisory firm On the Scene. Racine is on the scene.
Yes, we are.
She's a marketing leader known for turning media investment, measurable growth, experience across TV, paid social, influencer, audio, full funnel strategy, large-scale marketing efforts, direct-to-consumer marketplace business, as well as major national brands. Racine specializes in connecting brand and performance to drive efficient acquisition, long-term impact. Founder of On the Scene, where she advises companies on building smarter, more efficient growth strategies. Racine.
Thanks for having me. Wow, what an intro.
So in this world, it's not just about the world of linear television or digital or just even the convergence thereof. Digital is a prominent force in performance media. And we are absolutely blessed today to have the digital marketing manager who makes it happen, Brenda McInerney from Grand Canyon Education. Brendan leads Grand Canyon's paid media strategy, overseeing campaigns across video, static, animated, user-generated formats, a strong focus on data collection. There's a term we hear once or twice, right, in our business, data, and measurement. Brendan leverages analytics to optimize performance, guide strategic growth across brand, and lead generation initiatives. Brendan McInerney.
Thank you.
And Stephanie is in the house, all the way down on the side.
Barely.
Stephanie Stawniczy is with us from Empire Today. Boy, there's a brand that's been around for a while, great company. Stephanie has more than a decade of experience ranging from media buying, data-driven analytics, strategic campaign execution. She is, I would tell you on a personal level, and for those of you who know her, she's a real media pro. As we like to say, she knows her stuff. And she brings to the table extensive experience to performance-driven media. Please say hello to Stephanie. All right, so let's get into this topic. You know, for so many years, the playbook towards strategic growth was really dialed in. Like, we knew exactly how to do it. You started out with a very highly efficient, targeted digital channels. You prove out your model. You build a customer base as a starting point. Then you expand into broader online and offline media as part of your strategy. Today, like everything, that plan may be a little less defined, a little less clear than it's been in the past. I mean, consumers really don't anymore, arguably, really distinguish between linear TV, connected TV, social video, in the way that they used to do in the past. This has been an ongoing theme we hear about a lot. Consumers are moving between iPad, phone, connected TV, linear, and they're doing it very fluidly. So media has very much converged over time. And in doing so, I think one of the arguably biggest challenges is that the measurement for those of us in the performance media side becomes infinitely much more complex. So the line between performance and brand has kind of blurred to a degree, maybe arguably permanently. So the question becomes today, is there really a clear roadmap to scale? And are we now in a world where every brand has to build on its own? So that's really what we're here to unpack today. So let's start with the idea of first trying to define scale. What does scale really mean today? Now, we'll get into some of those tactics, but we'll set the ground level here in the idea that when we're talking about scale, are we talking about revenue growth? Are we talking about customer acquisition at volume? Is it return on investment profitability? Or maybe just building a durable brand? So let's start out with the question of scale and what it actually means to our panelists here today. Brendan, let's start with you. The campaigns that you work on, when there is a directive to push and to scale, what does that really mean anymore?
Yeah, good question. So for us, scaling is going after students, student acquisition. I mostly focus on online lead students. And I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous right now. This first question off the bat.
Hey, listen, nothing like putting you on the spot with the lights in your face.
Thank you. Thank you.
We quietly asked him to do this.
Yes.
Thanks. But scale is being able to measure our growth, being able to act and be able to build upon it. Not just going after getting traffic to the website, but getting quality traffic and continue to hone in on getting stronger and stronger quality. We do a lot in data engineering from a signal perspective, where we're trying to find the most quality signals to continue driving more quality traffic. You know, for us, we want to get the lead, but then ultimately we want to get the enrollment. So first, like many brands, you're going to focus on that primary KPI of a lead. But then you're trying to, how do you get that stronger signal to get that person who's actually ready to enroll? And for us, it's a very long journey. You have from the lead to the moment they're contacted, to the moment that they fill out the application or start filling out the application. They get midway through, they complete it, but do they register to actually show up to class? And so we're constantly trying to get more volume of people who are getting contacted, and then more people that are continuing to fill out the application. It's not just a matter of just trying to drive traffic that we can then ideally retarget. It's mostly trying to get more quality consumers to the website or prospects to the website based off those signals. And being able to measure every dollar that's going into it, being able to identify which channels are actually driving that better quality user, and looking at all the different platforms that are around. With the focus of online online education, typically that primary prospect is between the ages of 25 to 40. They're career switchers, or they haven't attended college before. They're looking for more affordable options. And so we use certain channels to engage them, but those channels don't necessarily work for other campus-focused students, where we tend to see like TikTok being a better opportunity versus, Facebook might do a little bit better for the older demographic. It used to be where, you had your Google, your Facebook, your out of home, your video, and it's all kind of linear in a funnel. Now we're seeing it's more of an orbit. It's people are going up and down, they're going left and right, but they're kind of all gravitating around the brand, and essentially just trying to hone in on the most quality audience and those channels that will drive that growth.
So the challenge becomes, it's not even just individually trying to drive, but so often the pressure becomes towards performance when you begin to scale, because as we have all seen in our work in this industry with brand, with clients, with agency work, sometimes when you scale, all of a sudden performance can fall apart in terms of KPIs and ROI for clients.
Yeah, so you guys hear me? Kind of to bounce off of that, scale today, you really want to grow your business. So just to what you said, a brand that I was previously working with, we definitely scaled our TV and CTV spend. We were dark for 3 months, turned back on in January during our peak time period. But unfortunately, we saw with this increase of spend, conversion was down double digits year over year. And that's just kind of when you scale, it can point, it's not the media, but it can actually point to other issues or stagnant in the business that is driving the decline. So we saw that maybe it was creative, and like the way we were measuring it was actually not correct. So it doesn't just mean that you're increasing your spend and you're going to see those conversions right away, and you have to make sure that you're aligning other strategies as well. So we took a look and saw that unfortunately, because we were dark, our other competitive set, when we were dark, were live. So that was where there was a decline rate, not because our media strategy was wrong and we were scaling up January through February, is because we weren't scaling enough during a key period of times. So really looking at the holistic picture and not just looking at what your strategy is, but what your competitive set strategy is, how you're measuring it, and if you have the right creative. Like if you're scaling TV versus CTV, are those creatives right for your audience at that given time is really important.
That's fantastic information. I think that really, in a nutshell, it's scaling can be done effectively, but the key is there has to be an intelligent strategy behind the execution of that scaling. You see that as well, Stephanie, I'm sure, as your role in a media buyer all the time. Pressure to scale, you scale, even sometimes when you put together the most well thought out media execution or plan or messaging, that doesn't automatically guarantee that the results aren't going to fall apart in doing so.
No, and a majority of my background is agency side. It's more recent where I'm client side now, but that education, that education piece of it on what to expect when you scale all throughout your funnel is so important. When you have people who genuinely work in the upper funnel marketing area and can educate a client on a day-to-day basis, actually, what is this? What is linear TV? How is it going to affect everything? What is CTV? How is it playing through the whole entire funnel? If you do that work ahead of time with any client, you're gonna save hours and hours of cancel it, it's not working, this isn't doing great. As the kids would say, you have to let it cook. Like you have to let your strategy, like you spend hours and hours building a strategy for a reason, through data, all of this like information you're putting together to build these upper funnel marketing strategies. If you don't let it cook and you panic and you don't educate clients, you're gonna waste so much time and it's just never gonna work.
So members of my team, our team, Sequoia Media Group, are in the front row. Please help me remember when we get back to the office, can we get a placard that says, "Let it cook,"
my
and put it
motto.
up on the wall? Absolutely. Brilliant line. I think that resonated with everybody. You've spent a lot of your career on the agency side, Rich, but also the brand side, the client side. What are some of the choke points that you run into and have run into in your career in the question regarding scaling?
Well, it always probably starts with some smart-ass president or CEO that just got off a podcast that he just drove into work, and it said, "So tell me, how are you going to scale this year?" And the only scale that person was probably on was a bathroom scale earlier in the morning. Don't throw around words that you don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I can think of the different teams that I've worked with, and I would always ask, okay, if we're looking at scaling, they would immediately go say, okay, well, we could scale our KPI, we can do this, we could do this, we could do this, and I'm like, stop. Ask yourself the question, do we have an opportunity to create a community? Or does our research prove that this is a more individual choice? Or groups of individuals? Or is there segmentation that proves that there are 5 to 7 groups in this particular area that we can only focus on 1 or 2, and we have to create a community with only those 1 or 2? Because before I spend $1 or I give anybody permission to do it, the fact of the matter is, have your numbers right. Have your community targets right. Make sure that when you throw a dart, it hits your target. And you better make sure that you know that target and which one it is and which one you're going to spend time on. And I think going back to my first thing that I talked about with other leaders coming up to you and say, how are you going to scale this? One of the things is you have to educate your leaders within your business to understand what scale truly is and where you have to begin. And if you don't start there, you could build out a wonderful media program and probably have some degree of success. But if you don't understand what the science is of your audience, you may choose the wrong things.
Outstanding information, Rich. And I don't know if others have run into this as well, but we were doing an analysis on a client we were proposing to work with fairly recently. And it seems like, to me and to us, we see a pattern over and over again. And it goes like this. Well, we dialed in on something and it's been working for a long time and we're scaling and things are falling apart. It's just not working that well anymore. And then we dig into it and we find 2 facts that resonate over and over again. Number 1, they found something that worked and they went into Ronco mode, set it and forget it. Right? They're delivering the same message, same creative to the same audience over and over again. And then there's questions about why there's a degradation in performance and results. Secondly, when you talk about diversification across media channels, not only the individual parts related to, let's say, offline media, but across the synergies related to both online and offline media, there's also a reticent response to get to diversification. So my question for the panel is, when we're talking about the old playbook versus today's playbook, is there really a reluctance to diversify out of media channel and media strategy for too long? Because we understand sometimes, like on the agency side, it's not just what you want to do, right? The client has certain rules you've got to play on, or even on the client side, you have to deal with internal politics. So is that part of the problem related to scale? Is there reluctance to make those kind of changes and, take some chances and some risks to see what might work, even though you might lose, it might fail?
Yeah, you're looking at me, right? I see that smile. I think especially with performance marketers, it was all about, the old playbook is really about performance first. We got to get search, affiliate, paid social, and then brand later. Like, TV's too expensive. It's a black hole. I don't know how to buy it. These CPMs are outrageous. We don't know how to measure it. And it was just a lot of confusion. But now what we're seeing on both sides, more branded and performance clients, is these 2 need to work together. If you don't have your base and your efficient acquisition reach, you're not going to get that performance you need. You see those in the numbers. If you shut off TV, you're going to see your non-branded and branded searches go down over time. And as Steph was saying, I like to say you need to give it time with TV and CTV, especially. That's definitely my expertise. You need to make sure you're building that story and building that reach to, in the long term, get that consideration and awareness, but then that's where those conversions come. So I think a lot of brands from both sides now, it's like the shiny object in the room all of a sudden for more of those awareness national brands are saying, we need performance. Like beauty brands are like, we need performance. We need, awareness is a part of it, but how are we going to measure performance? And now performance brands are like, we needed that brand storytelling. So they really need to work together. And obviously this is like the most classic word, brand performance is key. And looking at your entire media plan and saying, hey, these are more of like our action strategies. Like we see like SEM, like this is going to get more clicks, visitors to sites. Our CAC's going to go down because of this. But looking in your holistic video buy as well, you can slice and dice that to understand your action versus awareness too. And for brands that I worked on previously, that's exactly how we went forward with our go-to-market strategy, especially during a time where you want to increase awareness, you have a lot of competitors, maybe there's a rebrand, and that's what like really advise on, and how to understand what's an action media buy, not just your offline, and not just your online, but offline as well, and what's more of like that awareness to build that reach and build that brand story, which is really important. And that goes for creative as well, as testimonials versus brand, and where you're kind of looking at those across different channels. Obviously on TV and CTV, you need a different creative than a paid social, but maybe there is a time on CTV to test those kind of more scrappy paid social creatives on CTV where there's less clutter as well. So it's really testing and learning and looking at everything holistically, and you can buy video at a very efficient CPM if you have the right people managing your business that know those prices and know how to kind of negotiate, the whole package.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I must say too, everyone's always really quick to blame media when you start to scale and things break, but it's not necessarily.
Raise your hand if you've been there.
Like, it's not necessarily always media's fault. Like I always say, I could drive eyeballs, I could have people go to the site, I could have someone download your app, I could do that. But what else are you doing? Like, what is the brand doing? At the end of the day, it's not necessarily what we're doing in scaling on the media side. You have to look at the whole operational side of it as well. And if you don't have the right pieces in place from a business standpoint to scale and educate internally first before you start to make these moves, it's never going to be successful.
No doubt. We were talking about how we live in a different world today. I'm sure for everybody who's here with us, you probably live a similar life that we all do, which is, for me, I wake up in the morning, iPad by the bed, right? And then I go downstairs, I reach for my phone, then the phone is there at breakfast, the TV is going in the background, the radio starts up at work, and then I'm in front of computer screens with a TV. Brian, you know this, I've got, like 4 screens going or more all day long, at least all day long. So I do think when we're addressing the topic of scale, one of the things that we want to look at is, I remember 15 years ago, if you were a linear television agency, for example, that's what you did. And if you want to have a conversation about digital or any other form, any other media at all, it'd be like, well, we'll put you in touch with our LA office or our Boston office or whatever that might be. But the reality is today, there's just a convergence. We're just moving between screens. So when we're talking about scalability, I think one of the key questions that we want to look at is today, does channel distinction still matter? Any thoughts about that? Or does it matter more than ever?
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does right now. And, one of the things that I did at DuPont proves that. And Tom here, you remember the story you did at Response Magazine about our DRTV program for Teflon? Mm-hmm. Yes. And this was a giant risk to myself and my personal career. We had about $12 million that we were spending on 30-second ads, I believe through a WPP agency in New York that we were working with. And these were great ads. But we were buying card time typically. And we had our usual 6 to 8 week run. We looked at eyeballs, we looked at all the rest of the things. But, I was asking bigger questions. I was like, okay, and Teflon's an ingredient brand. Mm-hmm. How do we actually sell more for our partners? So I came up with this idea. It's like, okay, what if we did this DRTV program, involved our downstream partners, and we're able to talk about them specifically about where they could get and find this at certain retailers. Now, when this was presented, they thought, from an upmarket standpoint, they thought I was going down. And I was like, no. And because I wasn't spending $12 million, I must be considering suicide. But that wasn't the case. It turned out that we had one of our the most profitable product of all time, released during a time where Brian Williams was talking about the fact that Teflon was killing everybody on the nightly news, which wasn't true. And at the same time, we were still boldly going out there and using this with day parts to talk about where you could find this and how it's going to change your life and how it's a better product for you in the use in the kitchen. That became our most successful Teflon launch in 20 years. Now, the fact is that when they had heard about this, my office looked like the end of the movie Frankenstein, where people were coming with torches most every day. And I was sitting down at the DuPont Country Club, and our CEO stood up and said, "Hey, where's that DRTV kid?" I'm like, "Oh, there's only one person." And he went over and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" With a finger. I'm like, "Oh, no." So he sat down, he goes, "You want a beer?" I'm thinking, okay, this is my last beer. He sits down, he goes, "My wife just saw this new commercial with the Teflon brand. What's going on here?" I explained it to him. It was, "By the way, Rich," I heard that you use this as a Six Sigma project to actually show the change that you could do this." I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "My wife actually ordered the cookware set. Good job." He got up and he toasted me and he walked away, and I said, "I have my job for 2 weeks." But this is where the uneducated in media don't look at certain aspects of media as something that you can use for scale and scale up, rather than think about, let's say, classic DRTV, where they thought we were scaling down.
Great info. And I think so much of what you said, I think, resonates with everybody here, Rich. It came to mind, and this is an experience I think everybody in this room has had, where you have a campaign and it's not going well, right? There's just issues. Performance has dropped. Goals are not being met. And what happens is there's a collective meeting, and you alluded to this wonderfully, Stephanie, which is, where does the blame usually start? On the media side, right? The media buy, the media execution, that's usually the first finger. The reality is, and I think, again, all of us have been there, you begin to analyze the business as a whole. And then what do you find? When was the last creative change? Oh, that long ago. Let's look at the creative messaging. How many diversified messages are there? How many different calls to action are there in the creative execution? Oh, one since the inception. Interesting. And then the other bugaboo, which is a big one, of course, which is, are you 24/7, 365 on your intake asset? The answer is almost invariably, of course, no, right? Let's take a look. What are your hours? They're 9A to 7P Central. Terrific. How many inbound calls are happening during the times where your people are not there to answer them? And sometimes we see today upwards of 30% of all inbound calls. Can you imagine if somebody was there to interact with those clients, with those customers, with people that are responding to advertising, how that could affect the KPIs? The reality is, we know today, specifically in television or any other form of media, it's time shifting, big time, right? It's not like if you run your, say in the linear television world, 9A to 5P on a rotator, people are going to watch that advertising at all different times. So my question is, when you then begin to scale in an environment that's either working or not, is there one of these aspects that breaks first? So one example that we run into is, on the intake side, sometimes you don't investigate to really understand what's their telephony platform, how many seats are they running, how well do they answer calls. You scale, people are getting put on hold, calls aren't being answered, you have abandonment. There's one example. There's creative, there's operations. When you scale, what breaks first? Or does all of it break down?
I don't think anything, specifically what I don't think anything breaks, but it could point out bigger issues within your organization, meaning we scaled our TV and CTV spend, we started getting more visitors to site, but we were leading them to a landing page that maybe wasn't really relevant for that specific customers. Same with paid social. Like maybe they needed more of that education factor before converting.
Yeah.
So I think that was a huge insight of seeing like, oh, maybe they don't need, for TV, they don't need the service right now. They need to be educated on a need they may have to convert later. So I'm not sure in terms of breaking, I think it's just really pointing to what kind of internal improvements. And that goes again against creative, measurability, and then just like your landing page and your offering. Maybe you're not speaking to the right customer for each channel. Like customers are not looking at, oh, I saw this ad on paid social and this said this. I saw this ad on TV. I heard this ad on the radio. We're measuring it differently, but customers aren't. They want to come to a site where everything feels very together and unison. So we want to make sure that when you're scaling, you have the right landing pages, creative measurement, messaging to go with that scale. So on my end, I've never seen anything break, but it just pointed out more internal problems in the organization that we need to optimize and transact on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You navigate through this a lot, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Brendan, at GCU. I mean, you're dealing with the world of digital leads and landing pages, and stuff can break, especially when you try to stress the machine and scale.
Yep. Yeah, and we work very closely with our third-party media partners to get an idea of what's going on in the landscape, identifying which channels are performing better, which ones might not be doing as well. An example of this that we ran into with like Google, for instance, is with Performance Max campaigns, where we tested them and we found really strong lead performance. However, the quality of those leads weren't that great. And so what we found is that we're inundating our contact center with lower quality leads. They're having to call more people. It's taking them away from the focus on what is a more quality prospect. So trying to identify those areas that are breaking or aren't performing very well and capitalize on the areas that we can shift dollars into. But then also working very closely with the contact center to get feedback on the different channels. Which ones are they seeing better leads coming from? Typically what we'll see is our organic web leads will perform the best, followed by paid search, paid social, and then we go into our affiliate. And so based on that feedback loop of which areas are doing better, which ones might need more nurturing, then we identify for the ones that need more nurturing is how do we tell the story further? What can we do to bring them back when they're actually ready to enroll? So,
Yeah. I think one of the changes today is if you roll back a decade or more ago, you could just be an expert in your department, right? So campaign's not working, or it's not working because you're trying to scale, and say a finger comes and says to media, before it wouldn't necessarily be an approach to globally look at all these other elements. This has to be something you've run into, Stephanie, at least more than once, where you're scaling a campaign and you have to literally educate both internally within your organization, internally with clients you're working for, or even just within the own company if there's an internal marketing, as to, hey, there's more going on here than just the media strategy.
And when you think about scaling in the upper funnel marketing realm in general, so much of your media dollars are going to these tactics. Linear TV, it's not a cheap medium to be successful. So I hate to brag, but it's important to have me as someone who's been doing these type of tactics for a really long time to prepare you for what's about to break. This is what we need to get in line. This is what we need to start building. Then I will help you grow this and scale this. And that education piece, I cannot hone in on enough. If you do not put in that work at the beginning of like when you know you want to scale even into a new market, I always say, okay, you know what, if you're not in the US and if you're in the US or Canada, maybe we test into linear in Canada first. It's smaller, it's cheaper, CPMs are better. We do small scale there, then break into the US. But having to set those expectations on what's going to happen throughout everything is so important.
Yeah, she's right, because when she mentions education, that's not just the education as far as the marketing teams and what the media or the agency is telling them. It's what the marketing teams is actually telling to the media and the agencies, educating them. Because so many times I've seen where breakage happens, and I think you guys can agree, and marketers out here and agency people here, listen up. One of the things that I see that you could think of first, foundationally, did you formulate exactly your brand position and your value propositions and everything properly before you turn that over to an agency and then complain to them that something broke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reverse, agency partners, did you stop before you made all the presentations about exactly what your plan is and stop to ask them all those questions that they should have told you at the first? If you didn't, you're irresponsible. And marketers, if you didn't give them the information, you're just as irresponsible. Because if you're not working together to help educate what this foundation is, I always look at the break and go, were the foundational things done first? And 9 times out of 10, I've always walked into a situation where the agency partner goes, no, I guess we really didn't ask that question. They said that they were in a hurry. Then why are you pointing at them, Mr. Company, to say, I blame my agency partner? That's completely unfair. And the reverse is unfair. So look at your foundation first.
Yep.
It's very easy to play the blame game, and you really need a good partnership between your clients, the client and the marketer and the agency. They're really an extension of your team, and just pointing fingers you could do it both ways. It's really important to really bridge that gap and hire the right talent to educate. Totally agree.
Agreed.
I have a specific example that we have subset of clients, and one came to us saying they wanted to run on LinkedIn ads. When I looked at their website, they had no event tracking in place. So this was their first effort ever into paid advertising. They had no tracking on their website. They have no Google Analytics. They have no idea if who's actually come to your website, and it's actually, are you even getting high volume of organic traffic? They have no idea, but they do know that their audience probably uses LinkedIn more, so they said, let's put a bunch of money into LinkedIn and just run it. And so what we're doing is saying, no,
Push back,
we need to set this up because we have no way of evaluating our performance and being able to optimize against it and grow it and scale it. And otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to start it. You're not going to see strong results. You're going to spend a lot of money. And then you're going to say, I don't like paid advertising. It doesn't work. And then you're going to try some other form of media and just throw money at that. But you never set that initial foundation. And so I do take the approach. I came from the agency side where somebody told me, it's like, we're doing this. And I'm like, I don't think we should do it. Now I get a different seat where I can say, no, we're not doing this. We need to establish this first. And if we don't want to do it, then I'm sorry, I'm not the partner.
Love that.
And just because AI or ChatGPT is saying you should do something doesn't mean you should do it. You have to, again, have the right talent and the brains behind the operation. So I think that's really important.
I mean, think about what he just said. How many agencies have found themselves in review a year later because of this?
Right.
Over and over again.
That's completely irresponsible. You know, we can't do that to our partners, and we can't do that to ourselves as companies. We can't.
Yeah.
We can't afford to. There's not enough time, and there's not enough money to do it.
So for our marketing performance executives that are here with us today, I would think that they're hoping that they could pick up some inside baseball, right? So this is more of a rhetorical question I'm going to throw your way because there may not necessarily be that one, but I'm just curious to your feedback. So if there's a directive for the brand, for the client to scale, we absolutely want to scale, and they want to go from here to here. Is it a better strategy to scale up as quickly as you can and optimize along the way, or is it better to scale very meticulously and gently as you move up, even if you have to push back to demands to do otherwise? What are your thoughts?
Really depends what your goals are, but I like a stair-step approach when you're scaling and you're testing, especially into new channels. But obviously, if you're going through a rebrand or something, obviously you need to get that messaging out sooner rather than later at mass reach. But a stair-step approach at the right budgets, you can really test and learn, and then you can start scaling from there, seeing what works. And that's what I've done previously at other brands when we weren't buying CTV in 2020, and then all of a sudden we tested it, we saw it worked with one partner, and 25% of our buy ended up being CTV. Now I think that's at like 60% because over time we saw how much CTV was actually driving those response rates and incremental views to site. So again, you can test at a very small budget and optimize along the way if you want to continue that investment in that strategy. I think that's really important, and that's the kind of the strategy that I definitely stress with different clients of testing and giving it time. Again, TV is, I always speak about TV, but I think people see the numbers aren't working the next day and it continues to be down, CAC is up, and we have to cut it. No, you need to give it time, 4 or 6 weeks, sometimes months to actually bake in, get that customer and get that incremental reach and get those visitors to the sites that actually become your customer long term.
And even to add on to that, like, I think the main motto is literally what you said, test, learn, scale.
Yeah.
Like, how do you break into these additional, bigger tentpole situations like sports, for example? You don't want to go in and buy one national NFL spot and see how it does, that you just burn money that way. How do we test in through it? Maybe through Unwired, national locals on a smaller scale, prove your concept, and then scale it that way. So figuring out different avenues to do that is so important.
And
would be, yes,
Oh,
Brendan.
sorry.
Yes.
And I would say I agree with the step approach and also setting the expectations. I use it as a guardrail to show it's like, this is where we're heading. It's not necessarily throwing too much to try to scale too quickly, because I tend to find like that type of strategy comes with more of a reactive approach later on, where somebody's going to say, it's not doing what we expected, let's pull it. And I like to set the expectation that we're going to start here, and then if that works really well, then we're going to start adding in these components to it that's still within that channel mix. And then if that's working well, then we're going to activate this channel here, and that's where our spend's going to be at by this point in time. But also, if that doesn't work well, then here's where we're going to pivot. We're going to shift into here. By doing that, I'm setting the expectation and guiding the client to show it's like, this is where we're headed. And so I don't want to get that phone call or that email saying like, hey, this isn't working, it's broken, shut it down. I want to be able to say, it's like, yep, I hear where you're coming from. Let's start going into that plan B that we discussed.
I think what they're all saying right now is what I term, it's not being risk adverse, folks. It's being about risk ready.
R squared.
Risk ready. And you have to be thinking about what the risks are ahead of time and be pragmatic about the kinds of steps you're going to take going forward. And being ready for, as Brendan just said, the people who come in, this is not working. It's like, okay, sit down before you hurt yourself.
It's not that.
It's not all,
It'll all be okay.
It's
My
like,
gut tells me so.
We're laughing because we can relate.
Right, exactly. It's like, especially when you're trying to walk through these terms, and I'm sure all of you have been through this before, especially when you're dealing with other people who, are maybe president, CEO, what have you. They're not particularly marketers or accountants or engineers or what have you, and they're trying to use terms to know something more about your business. It's like, okay, you don't give guns to children. It's like, but you have to educate, and you have to have them understand that you are risk ready.
We could easily do 2 hours on this topic, but we're coming up to the last few minutes that we have. I just want to touch quickly on the future. Let's talk a little bit. I mean, there's hardly a conversation that any of us here in this room have today at a show like this or in the industry without talking about artificial intelligence, AI, its impact on the world and on our industry. We're seeing the impact of AI throughout brand work, agency work, growth of clients. In regards to the future of scale, when we look, say, 2 to 3 years down the road, do we envision that AI and the automation that comes with it will have an impact on scale? And any thoughts about what that might be? Nobody knows for sure, so we're just, as they say, shooting rubber bands at the stars. But how will AI affect all this?
I'm waiting on Google to chill out on.
I'll sell you any AI product on the side.
The AI overviews are really making an impact on organic search results, and that's causing ripples in other areas and trying to get people to go back to this website directly. It used to be, and I don't have the specific stats with me right now, but it used to be where people would search more for like non-branded terms. We're seeing that's upticked tremendously this past year as AI overviews have been more common, as well as the usage of LLMs. People are now investigating the different types of products that they want, but then once they get that feedback loop from the AI, they're now searching for that specific brand. They now know that specific product. And so what I'm doing is each week I'm checking to see when the perplexities and chat GPTs are going to allow education advertisers to show ads within those results. Historically, from talking to a lower funnel perspective, Google usually gets the lion's share, then Microsoft, if you have the opportunity there, that gets supplemental. But where I see that's going to change is once more ads are available within AI overviews, we're going to start to see a shift out of Google and into those areas. Once that happens, Google will release it the next day that this is our product. I think they're sitting on it, but it is causing challenges. And where I'm also suggesting that we shift our strategy is, for some of the stuff I do internally, it's, I used to do more SEO, but I just know enough to be dangerous. So now where I'm suggesting clients kind of lean in on is being more present within social, because that's starting to get pulled in more into AI overviews, leaning more into that. You're seeing that people are going to Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for inspiration. When I was looking at some of the restaurants that we were eating at while I was out here with some of our vendors, I went to Facebook and Instagram. I looked at what they had to offer. Before I used to go to Google. I would look at their menu and see what's available and see what the experience was like, but it was very limited. Now I'm going more to social, and that's not just me, that's the behavior that everyone's doing. And so it's this shift away from like the traditional SEO that people have done and trying to figure out, well, where can you reach this audience? They're moving. So yeah, where I would suggest is that in the next couple of years or so is continue to keep that focus on when you can get into AI overviews from an ad perspective, and continue to tell that story across other channels that your audience has shifted to.
I think the one big takeaway for all of us here is that there's not a single element or single aspect to the roadmap to scale. And the secondary takeaway, at least from my point of view, is we're just merely scratching the surface on this entire topic. So in a nutshell, it does seem like that when we look at success, it comes from many different factors, many different facets. Understanding when to evolve your channel mix, I think, was a big takeaway that we had from this. Balancing the idea that, and this is, again, I'm sure, a resounding theme for all of us here, balancing performance and brand between those two ideas. You can't have a conversation about scale without bringing that into the mix. Operational infrastructure, all the most brilliant creative work, operational work, media execution buys, landing page execution, none of it really happens without the right operational infrastructure, right intake, infrastructure behind it, and very much having the discipline to scale intelligently. And maybe part of what you said as well, Rich, is the idea of almost be willing to, I want to say on one hand, push back, but maybe educate either your company or the client that you're representing, the strategic idea of an intelligent scaling strategy just versus one that tries to scale up as quickly as possible. So again, outstanding panelists today. Thank you so much. Stephanie, Racine, Brendan, Rich, outstanding work.
And what a host. Look at this. Look at that. Let's clap it up.
And guys, as we wrap up, thanks also to
PDMI
and to Tom and to John and everybody that works behind the scenes. I think that I can speak for everybody here that PDMI and the relentless work that Tom and John do is more important now than it's ever been in our industry. And so we really thank you for everything that you do to keep that train rolling. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.